Harriet Goldman is a legendary agent who got her start agenting quite young. She takes over an agency and she kind of develops this cadre of girls. And Harriet's girls are the ones she takes a special interest in. She is shaping their careers. She's looking at what all they can do. Is it going to be editorial? Is it going to be runway? Is it going to be beauty? Is it going to be commercial? And she's trying to develop this holistic, lasting career for her girls. And she really views herself as somebody who is trying to improve the industry. But Harriet's flaw is that she thinks that the best way to do this is by finding girls as young as possible and really shaping that career as early as possible. And that can have devastating consequences. When I started the story, I knew that it was going to be about a girl who met a rock star who would make himself her legal guardian, because that was a thing that happened. And I felt like that was something worth exploring in fiction, especially as a classic rock fan. And I was just thinking about how would I get this girl into his path? And that's how modeling came to me. In 1973, there was this magazine, Star, 1973, that featured a lot of teenage girls on the Sunset Strip as models. It was a teen magazine. It was very short-lived, and it kind of highlighted that early 70s groupie culture. And so I kind of had that in mind as a nod to Star 1973. But I also found that modeling gave me a lot of room to explore this metaphors of, what's on paper versus what's reality, kind of the image you project versus what you're experiencing. I felt like it was a good secondary, maybe not like it was a good avenue with which to explore a lot of the things I was looking at through the relationship with Birdie and the rock star. I think the idea of being seen and not heard was something that I was really interested in because she has a line in the book, like, nobody discovered us for our minds. And in my research, I discovered so many models who were brilliant and who had made a lot of contributions to society and who used their platform to make the world a better place. So that was something I was really interested in. And silence, and that was also something I was looking at because her dialogue never really came to me. This started as a short story, and even as a short story, she didn't really ever speak. And this idea of these girls who are kind of brought into this life as, status symbols or as arm candy without, thinking about them as a whole person. And that was something I really wanted to explore. And just ideas of agency and like what might feel like power and what might feel like agency isn't really, and how that can be manipulated as you get older, and the idea of memory and what might seem like your choice when you're experiencing it can look a whole lot different when you're older. And of course, aging was a theme I wanted to look at too, because she's in such a visual world. I felt like she was kind of emotionally banished from New York. If she went back to New York, she had to admit failure. So she's in LA and their punk scene. And also I just sort of gravitate towards the LA music scene. That's always kind of been where my creative interest lies, which is kind of a really niche thing, but I think there's a lot to be mined from there. And the idea of the Starwood as this kind of launching pad for so many careers. And I kind of wanted to work that in there. And it's really the dying embers of the punk scene when she's there. And it's the rise of hair metal and glam metal. And that's so close to the world she had been in. And this proximity to like just sort of stripped down 70s arena rock to like glammed up pyrotechnic, bombastic glam metal is something that it gives her, it also gives her career a little bit of longevity too, because she becomes a video vixen in her own right, but it also keeps her tied to the rock star, because what we saw in the late 80s or mid to late 80s was a lot of these guys from the 70s kind of making that bid for cultural relevance through the hair metal scene. So I invented a band called Stinger, which is sort of, I would call them like Warrant-esque. She's sort of their version of the Cherry Pie Girl. I think that's the one that gets the biggest shout out. Everything else is kind of unnamed. I did use real punk bands, X and Social Distortion. I mentioned Real Punk Fans that she went to see. By the time we get to 2018, she's back in LA. She's living a quiet life as a model. She's doing commercial work, just kind of what she can get, enough to pay the bills. And she gets an invitation in the mail inviting her to a gala honoring the 50th anniversary of Harriet Goldman's career and 50 years of glamour is what it's called. And Harriet's assistant has left her a note saying, I hope to see you there. And what we come to learn is that she hasn't spoken to Harriet, who was her mentor, the molding influence of her life, the person she felt the closest to at one time in 30 years. So she has to decide if she's going to go to this gala. And as the book unfolds, we learn why she and Harriet do not speak anymore. And to go to the gala, she has to kind of reckon with what the relationship with the rock star meant and what it says about her life and the truth of all of that. And that is something she has been keeping very pushed down for the last 20 years. It's not something she's really acknowledged. In order to move through the world, she decides, like, I cannot think about this anymore. And so this invitation kind of brings all that up, and she has a few people in her life who are encouraging her to, like, maybe take these steps forward, start to make peace. And so she goes through some plastic surgery decisions because she's going to be seen by people for the first time. She gets contacted by a journalist who's doing a story about Harriet, and that brings up a lot of memories of, you know, not wanting to talk to journalists and kind of how the rock star wanted her to, like, kind of keep herself hidden. And through all this reckoning, she arrived at her decision.